Hello, my name is Vanita Patterson, and welcome to Reading with Growell, Aiken County. Today's book is In the Garden with Dr. Carver. It's by Susan Grisby and illustrated by Nicole Tigdale. And here we go. I'll never forget the Sunday that we stepped out of church and saw an old mule waiting beside a funny looking wagon. The man with the wagon was George Washington Carver, the famous plant scientist from the big school in Tuskegee. Dr. Carver called the wagon his mobile school, and it was piled high with plants, tools, and seeds. The adults all gathered around, eager for advice. They had heard about the 20-pound cabbage and the onion as big as a young child's head that Dr. Carver had grown on the land just like ours. He said that plants get from the soil the food that they need to make them grow. But cotton, like a hungry monster, had gobbled up the food in Alabama soil. Dr. Carver was showing folks how to make our poor soil healthy again. He was even teaching people how to turn simple food like peanuts and sweet potatoes into luxuries like coffee, butter, and sugar. Hundreds of new products poured out of his laboratory, all made from plants that we could grow. But for me, the best part of Dr. Carver's visit was that he agreed to stay through Monday to help us with the garden at our school. Who here would like to learn to be a plant doctor? Dr. Carver asked. I waved my hand the hardest. So he asked me to observe the first case. So, Dr. Sally, he said, why do you think that this rose bush is looking so weak when her cousins by the fence are covered in beautiful red roses? I don't know, I admitted. What should I do first? Listen to the plants, and they will tell you what they need. Go on. I thought about what Dr. Carver meant. Maybe it was like listening to the wind and watching the sky to tell the weather. I think that's a bit of a key. I looked over at the healthy roses basking in the bright sunlight. Then I examined my patient. Just a single rose grew on her entire bush. As she sat alone, all alone, in the shade beside the shed. I got it, I cried out. My patient needs to be moved to where she'll get more sunlight. That's an excellent job of observation, Dr. Sally, Dr. Carver said. Now, let us begin the operation. Dr. Carver showed us how to transplant the rose bush very carefully without damaging her roots or letting her scratch us. When I was a boy, said Dr. Carver, drawing and plants were my two passions. I mixed my own paints and covered stones and discarded boards with pictures of the flowers. And I was always asking questions. I wanted to know the names of every strange stone and flower, every insect, every bird, and every beast that visited the garden. We want to know all about the garden too. So we just sat there, quiet, waiting, watching, listening to nature, and drawing the beetles and bees, flowers and fungi, worms and birds, and pretty bits of stone. I never knew our garden was such a busy place. And Dr. Carver knew the names of everything. My brother Ben found a big web stretched out like a fishing net spun of the finest lace. On it waited a huge and hungry spider. Ben raised the stick, ready to kill it, when Dr. Carver stopped him. That spider is helping our garden, explained Dr. Carver, by eating up the creatures that want to eat our plants. Before you change or destroy something, you need to understand why it exists and its relationship with the rest of nature. The plants, the soil, and the animals that visit are all connected, just like a web. In every single flower bed, dandelions held up their sunny yellow heads. Who planted all of these? Lucy asked. That would be Old Man Wind, chuckled Dr. Carver. He shows us how the fluff of a dandelion puffball was really a family of hundreds of seeds. Carried by the wind, they could travel miles before landing and beginning to grow. A plant is a weed if it's growing uninvited. We learn those greedy dandelions were taking food, light, and water from the flowers that our teacher, Miss Simpson, had planted. Dr. Carver showed us how to remove the dandelions, pulling them up by their long, hungry roots. We've saved their youngest leaves for our lunchtime salad. Dr. Carver said that we should eat all of the fruits and the vegetables that we could. By then, we were as hungry as a pack of wild dandelions. Miss Simpson and the older students had cooked a delicious spread of picnic food using recipes invented by Dr. Carver. After every bit was gobbled up, then they told us what we'd eaten. Sweet potato flour bread, chicken made from peanuts, and a salad of strange wild wheats. And for dessert, peanut ice cream and cake. After our feast, Dr. Carver said that it was time to plant our own kitchen garden. We followed him to a lot behind our school. Spot is no good, Emmett said. It's sunny, but the soil's rock hard. See, it won't budge. He's right, I said. Nothing ever grows out here, not even a weed. And nothing ever will unless we improve this worn out land, said Dr. Carver. Plants, like people, need nutritious food to help them grow. Dr. Carver took us to a patch of forest near our school. We scooped up buckets full of rich and leafy loam. While we worked, he explained how rotting plants were full of good things to feed healthy plants. Leaf mulch, swamp muck, and decaying roots of peanuts, peas, and beans will all enrich the soil, he said. You can make your own fertilizer too. I'll leave Miss Simpson my recipe for compost. Paper shreds, vegetable scraps, anything that breaks down quickly will put nutrients back into the soil. So much of what people waste can be put to good use. Dr. Carver asked us to show him the nearest dump. We found wood scraps to use for our plant markers and, and a raggedy headed mop to make a tall scarecrow. When Clarence grumbled about picking through the dump, Dr. Carver told us how he'd made test tubes, lamps, and all sorts of tools for his laboratory from the reused treasures of just such a dump. The word treasure set Clarence's eyes on fire, and he kept picking until he found a fine costume for our shagged head scarecrow. Back at school, we used milk paint to label our garden signs. so that we'd remember what we had planted where. Excellent idea. We were all sad to see Dr. Carver leave, but he made Miss Simpson promise to take us outdoors every day for nature study and gardening lessons. And he gave her papers he'd written to use as our school guides. And we promised Dr. Carver that we wouldn't eat any wild weeds, as some can be very poisonous, until our teachers taught us which ones were safe. Some people come in and out of our lives as quick as a hummingbird darting at a trumpet vine. And some of them, when gone, leave something behind that sticks in our heart or mind. It sticks to you like a little burr on your sock. It wraps around you like a tendril of a vine. Since that day that we spent in the garden with Dr. Carver, whenever I step among flowers, trees, or vegetables, I remember his words: listen to the plants, and they will tell you what they need. And they do. Thank you for joining me today reading In the Garden with Dr. Carver. I indeed enjoyed reading with you. What I would like for you to remember is that plants in nature is something that we should all be aware of. Always remember to listen and always be ready to learn something new. Thank you. Have a good day. Until the next time, I'm Vanita Patterson. Bye bye for now.